Hey there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation Magazine. This is what it used to look like when we print it. Now we're digital, but this was the last issue I printed, August 20th, 21. And had this is White Castle. This is their biggest facility that they had ever built before. And this is Mike Gyner, Vice President of Operations. And we thank Mike for gracing the cover. But this was a good looking issue. Let's see. This was 148 pages. And where was I? Oh, I was in Memphis doing a site visit at for our retreat that we did that summer, and it was great. If you haven't been to Memphis in a long time, let me tell you, Graceland is not just the house and the little souvenir shop. They built a whole amphitheater, and they've got multiple buildings of all of Elvis's, costumes and records and just all this stuff. You could spend days out there and not see anything. So I had been to Graceland way back when, but I was blown away when I went there. So it was really good. But like I said, like holding a magazine, but I don't miss the post office and I don't miss the printer. And we had just under 49 million people that hit the website last year. So it's amazing. So thank you to everybody helping us with our print face-to-face to digital transformation. I think last month I was at 6.8 million. So if I take that times 12, basically seven, that's 96 million people hitting the website over a year. That's insane. I never, ever, ever thought as a print
That's awesome.
face-to-face guys that I would have that much people reading our content. But anyway, I was just lucky. I had a digital magazine way back when just digital was getting started, and we built one, and I had it, and I was lucky. But in any event, it's been an amazing journey. Uh, Third month of Q1. First week of March starts today. Actually, the third month started on Saturday, but beautiful day. I'm out of Atlanta, Georgia. It's just beautiful out. I'm finishing up my empty nester house. I've got about a month to go. They're just got all the toilets and they're working on the trim. And I met with the landscape architect on Saturday, and we're going to start putting the Lego set together. It's basically once the trim and the paint's done, it's putting together a Lego set. You put in all the light sockets and the switches and the shelving and the doorknobs, all the interior doors, 27 of them. They're all installed. And I got a couple barn doors in there too. But and then the flooring and then the appliances and I got to pour the concrete. I got to add the garage doors. But every day it's something's happening up on that house. I know my neighbors are like, oh man, those guys are cranking up there. So, but and Mother Nature, we got some nice weather, a little chill, but nice during the day, and very excited to finish it up. But all in all, great weekend. DU won both lacrosse games. The ice hockey team split, and my Georgia Swarm, they went up to Ottawa and they beat the Bears, and so I think they're number three in the NLL standings. So it was a great weekend, and can't complain. We'll take the split with St. Cloud Slate on the ice, but all in all, getting ready for an awesome month. Hopefully, you are too. Today, I have a gentleman up in Chi-Town, Chicago. For those of you who don't know that, that's what I call Chi-Town, the Windy City. And his name is Gyner Ozgul, and he's the CEO of Raptor Roofing. Did I pronounce that right, or did I
You
butcher
did. You did pretty good. That's
it?
good.
All right, all right. Say hello to our listeners out there, Gyner.
Hey, welcome to hello to your listeners. I'm really humbled to be here and hearing your story is kind of fun. So I already wrote some notes down. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, regardless, listen, Guiner's publicist sent me a note, and I hadn't had someone like him on the podcast in a while, so I figured I'd put him on there and see what's going on with the residential commercial roofing market. And
mhm,
so this is the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it in three parts. You're going to tell us your story, where you
mhm.
grew up, where you went to school, kids, sports, whatever, and how you ended up at Rafter Roofing Exteriors. Then we'll talk about lessons learned over the roller coaster that we've all been on over the last 3 to 5 years. And even though we're out of the tunnel, there's still some speed bumps that we're all running into. And then you'll leave your contact info and then one positive thought or phrase, and then we'll close it out. So with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your
Oh,
story.
oh, Gyner Ozgul, as you mentioned. I am the son of two immigrants. Grew up in a little town border suburb of Chicago called Summit. So if for all your listeners, Midway Airport, just go west of there about 10 minutes. And that's kind of where I grew up. I went to all the local schools there, went to Argo High School, um, went to college at the University of Illinois in downtown Chicago, finished school at a small Catholic university called Lewis University, which is in Romeoville, Illinois. Um, and throughout that time, I was actually my first job. Funny you mentioned White Castle in your intro. I was actually a QSR, a quick service restaurant guy. I started at a Burger King as an hourly employee, and my parents were immigrants. We didn't have a lot of money, and I had to kind of earn my own keep through school.
Sure.
But that ended up becoming a career, even though that wasn't planned. Between 16 and 26 years old, I went from hourly employee to regional director of operations in Chicago, running a restaurant and learning a lot about people.
Lots of
uh,
hours.
it's lots of hours and lots of people. Um, Funny little fact about quick service restaurants: their turnover is over 100% typically. So it's a very challenging industry. Um, but back in 2003, towards the end of my QSR days, I joined a business called GCS, which was owned by a company called Ecolab out of the Twin Cities. And they had guys that worked on, and gals that worked on commercial kitchen equipment. So they were service technicians, skilled laborers, like trained. They could do plumbing, electric. So, and we did installation, we did repair. So kind of my first foray into, like, I'd say blue collar labor. So I knew restaurants from my history, but I didn't know kind of the construction repair side of things at all. Right. So that was all new for me to learn in that process. And it was all commercial work at the time. Right. So we were in hospitals, universities, schools, restaurants, and it included HVAC in many cases. So it was a lot to learn. I spent about 20 years in that industry, up until joining Rafter. So that industry taught me a lot about, like, the respect out of blue collar work and understanding how hard the trade work is and what people have to do and the environments they have to work in. And I came into Rafter with that hat on, right? So now I'm moving from kind of the back of the house to building houses, literally roofs of houses. At RAFTRx, primarily we do insurance re-roof on the residential side, but we are doing quite a bit of commercial now. So we've kind of made our entry into the commercial space. And, that business is super interesting to me because typically the roof is like protects all the assets, both on the residential and the commercial side, right? So, and it's not only people think of the building and structure, but I think of it like further than that. It's like the people that live in those buildings and structures or work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how important that roof is to the safety and sanctity of those people underneath that roof, and why we are such a mission critical service, right? So that's kind of the narrative of the story. Personally, I've been married for 20,
Better get
it'll
it
be
right.
20. No, I know. I'm just doing the math. Nothing's wrong with it. I'm just doing the math to make sure I do it right. Been married for 20, it'll be 29 years this year, 28 years going on 29. Have two sons. I used to call them boys, but now they're not. My eldest is actually a union custodian. And my youngest is a sophomore in college. He runs track and field. So I'm a busy dad, a busy CEO, and I love it. I feel very humbled, privileged, blessed. All those are good words I could use by the fact that I'm able to just sit in this chair and have a conversation with you and your listeners today. It's kind of remarkable. The son of an immigrant dad who was making $300 a week and could barely pay his mortgage back in the early 80s to being on a podcast with somebody like yourself and to have your listeners. It's just remarkable for me.
Yeah, hey, listen, welcome to the USA. It's it's the land of prosperity. You know, you work hard, you work smart, and if the ball bounces or the puck bounces your way, you'll get your gig. When you were talking about restaurant equipment, I the biggest restaurant equipment show other than the NRA show, which is at McCormick every year.
Yeah.
It was called NAFM, the National
Yep.
Association. Yeah. Anyway, I was just at NAFM. It was here in Atlanta. I just walked it on Wednesday, and anyway, I was looking for a couple of things. You know, my wife's like, "Well, we're looking for I need a six griddle." You know, and I called her. I said, "Babe, these are all commercial gigs. They're not the
Yes.
foo-foo kind of thing, but I'll look around." But it was good to get down. It's every 2 years, and during the roller coaster, they had NAFM, and it was canceled. But it was always good. It's always good to get out there to see who's doing what, who's retired, who's gone over to the competitor, and who got bought out, and very familiar with Eco Lab, and
Yeah.
every restaurant's got probably one of their filters or some sanitation gig going on with those guys.
Yes.
That's a
That's
big
absolutely
company. So, but
Abs-
yeah,
absolutely right, David. And it's funny, your magazine, you said your last magazine was on White Castle. I was smiling when you said that because most people don't know that, they're based out of Columbus, Ohio. I'm sure you know that. Um, but they have like their company actually has two arms, and one is the construction arm. They're family owned, and like no one knows that there's this like whole quick service restaurant chain that has this whole like other business, and they do a lot of commercial construction.
oh
And
yeah,
you realize it when you go to their headquarters and how the building is kind of divided in
split.
those two business. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You a
So
GC or you an end user? Okay, you're over
yeah,
here. Go
yeah,
this way,
yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. So it's awesome.
Well, who doesn't know White Castle? Like, it's White Castle or Crystal. You know, they both have the little square little hamburgers with the onions and the pickle. And but actually, there's a White Castle whenever I go into McCormick, depending if I'm at Midway or if I fly into
Hmm.
O'Hare, I take the train down. It's the Kennedy Expressway is always backed
Yep.
up. So in any event, when I get off in Chinatown on the Orange Line. I walked down a mile and a half to McCormick. There's a White Castle. It used to
There's
be
right
there.
there.
They've been doing a lot of renovation there, but I don't know. It's probably still
It's
there.
still there. It's still
It's
there.
been there
It's still there.
forever. It's an
It's still
old
there.
one. Not the greatest place in town to be walking, but I do it. I grew up in Manhattan, Philadelphia. What's Chicago? Just another city, just a little windier,
That's
colder.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right.
But
Um,
go ahead. What were you gonna say?
no, you had asked about the roller coaster, and what a roller coaster. Um, my lessons learned the last number of years on roller coasters specifically is how valuable our our construction and service people are to this infrastructure of this whole country. I think we collectively as like a country took them for granted, and we realized during the roller coaster how important they are. Like seriously, like to the folks that listen to this, like my heart goes out to you guys. I have nothing but respect to the folks that are in those construction and service industries. Like, man, they rode the hardest cart in that roller coaster.
Yeah, people don't realize that when March 2020, where was I? I was in Milwaukee looking for some hotels for my summer retreats, and one of the actors, Tom Hanks, he got the bug, and everything got shut down. March Madness was canceled, and it wasn't like the '08 crash when the economy fell off the cliff.
Yeah,
And it was a little different because everybody was still flying and traveling here. It was really unknown, and oh, it's only gonna be a couple weeks, could be a month. Then it went month after month. Here we are, 5 years later, and we're still talking about it. And um, you know, the biggest thing was that uh, a lot of the contractors, they put their masks on, they got on the planes, and if
yeah,
their projects were deemed essential, they had to get out there. So I always look at them as frontline responders because
that's right.
we're trying to keep people employed at that time and through the ride. And a lot of people just don't realize, listen, police, healthcare, firemen, sanitation, all these guys, they all have to go, they can't stop. Nothing stopped. and construction was right along with those lines. And you don't know how many people that said, "Oh yeah, I got on the germ tube and flew because I had a construction project. I had no choice, put my mask on and went." And uh, I it was I'm sure it was scary for some people too, but
Yeah.
what are you gonna do? You gotta, you go and you do it. And looking back, it made them probably better people just in general, and to see how their company believed in them and took all the safety precautions that they had to. And well, let's just step back. March 2020, when
Yep.
everything happened, even though you have a fond, place in your heart for the GCs or the
Mhm.
facility maintenance guys, whoever's going out there, to get work done. You know, uh, where was Rafter at that point? In your
So
life.
yeah, so I wasn't at Rafter at that time. I
There
was
you
still
go.
at
Okay.
the
Yeah.
old gig. But what I would say, so let me take two cuts at that. At my old gig, we had guys like you said, they were at the front lines, right? They had to be out there. And I remember one of the pictures I got from one of our technicians who was working at a long-term care facility or retirement facility. And they had to set up tents outside for them to work on the equipment because nobody knew what was kind of going on. This was like April of 2020. So it's raining. He's in a tent trying to work on a piece of equipment, right? And like it just like punches you in the face about like, holy crap. I mean, here we are kind of sheltering at home. And you have guys like that that are getting up every morning with a mask. It's hot and it's rainy. They're in a tent. It's cold. Whatever the case is, they're actually out there still doing it, right? Um, but what I will say is, as it relates to Rafter, the way I think about the roller coaster is it gave us an appreciation for how important the roof of your home is, right? All of a sudden, this place that I think we took our homes for granted and we didn't realize how important they were until the roller coaster too, right?
Hmm.
Um, and there's this huge opportunity to take homes and fix things like their roofs and make them better places for you to work, live and work in now, right?
Hmm.
Now, of course, the roller coaster keeps going different directions, but I still think the home is like your most important asset. Why wouldn't you keep the most important thing on that asset in the upkeep of that, which is in this case, I would argue the roof is the most important piece, like in good shape, right? So,
Hmm.
you hear about warranties and lifetimes and 30 years and 25 years and different manufacturers. Like a lot of that is like hard to really get concrete. The way you do it is you get, an inspector of a reputable roofing agency like Rafter. This is my plug, my one and only plug. Um, you got to have them get on your roof and take a look at it. And some combination of age and weather does impact it. And during the roller coaster, I think a lot of people finally got people on the roofs and started to realize I really need to take care of this.
I look at the roof as it's just like the floor. You got to maintain it if you want it to
Yeah.
last as long as possible. You have to have your eye on it here and there. It's built to last if you had a good installer and you put up, whether it's metal or shingle or whatever it might be. If the installer did a good job, it'll last that much longer. But it's a maintenance gig. You got to maintain it. Just like you change your oil in your car, you got to go keep your eye on it, especially if there's a hailstorm that comes out or whatever. And I always used to have these guys, yeah, hailstorm comes through and they would come back, oh, you got roof. I'm like, I'm in construction. There's nothing, never had a leak on it or whatever. And it was funny when I sold my house back in 2021, uh, we had the roof inspected and uh, the insurance guy came out and he was looking at stuff and he said, hey, the guys that built your house did a really good job because the roof is in really good shape. But I saw a bunch of my neighbors' roofs and we were all built about the same time. And we had that house for 17 years. I think that was my
Yeah.
favorite house here in Atlanta. I forget. But he said, hey, that roof probably will go for another 10 years. And it was funny, the persons that bought the house, they were like, we want the roof replaced. I'm like, no, it's in really good shape.
Yeah.
Never ever had a leak. You can go up there. We've maintained it. One time I had, I think, on one of the side roofs that were on the house, I had to we had to, what do they call having a brain fart? Anyway, they had to get some rubber compound and just kind of reseal.
Feel it.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, reseal it. It was a little, 10-foot spot. And anyway, it's just like anything else. If you look at construction as your finger. Your fingernail's the construction part. Once your
That's
facility's
right.
built, it's the rest of them, depending on the life of the building and what you're going to do
That's
with it,
right.
and you refresh it, that's where all that maintenance comes in. So if you maintain, like your roof, you don't want it to leak. You want it to be keep the hot air out and the cool air in, or vice versa, depending on what, time of year you're in. And you don't want water coming down because you don't want slip and fall or any of that stuff happening. You don't want your customers being bummed. And it's probably, listen, all your assets are underneath there, all your fixtures, your interior
That's right.
product, all that stuff's in there. So you want to have it, done by, someone who's a reputable person, but it's important. You got to keep your eye on things. And if you don't, it's like this weekend, my sister, she had a Subaru. I think it was like a 18, maybe it was a 16, I forget. Anyway, she has her driving it. Anyway, her partner said, "Hey, let's go down to Philly for the weekend. Put the dog in the overnight gig." And they got on the turnpike to go towards Philly, and they're in the Long Island outside of Manhattan. And anyway, the oil leak came on. Anyway, I think she fried her engine. She goes, "Well, the oil leak was going on." And I'm like, "Well, don't you check your oil?" And she's like, "Well, I do it every oil change." I'm like, "You should always check your oil between oil changes. You don't know what happens there. Just because the light comes
Right.
on doesn't mean." So she's like, "We probably fried." I'm like, "Probably."
Yeah.
And time to get a new car. But these are just the little things. All you had to do was go in there and see if there was any oil in there. Uh, and go ahead.
Yeah, well, the thing I was going to say is another lesson learned for all of us, especially as it pertains to homes and maybe even honestly commercial properties, is in this roller coaster, the combination of interest rates and like the sale price of properties, the maintenance of your property, whether it be residential or commercial, is even more important now because the cost of you acquiring it and ultimately at some point when you want to sell it, that you have to maintain it right now. You don't have the last 20 years or so, we've had that like hockey stick rise of, retail prices. I mean, I'm sorry, real estate prices. I don't think we have that. We're not going to have that for a while, right? So
Hmm.
the maintenance and upkeep is going to be even more important because as you start to think about I mean, you got a little push on your house, right? I think that's going to happen more often now. I think as owners go buy commercial or residential properties, I know I would do it. I'm going to go in and say, how old is your roof? Like, let's look at the construct of your house, or if it's a commercial property, maybe getting on top and having somebody come and do a coring of the roof and doing an analysis of the roof to see like what condition it's in. I think there's going to be more of that as an output of the roller coaster where they didn't have to think about that before. It was a little bit of you're negotiating price, but you didn't get into the details. I think people are going to get into the details a lot more now.
Your comment about when, in March of 2020, when everything went kaput, a lot of people were, they took a look at their house. The first thing I did, I went out and redid my deck. I mean, I was
Mhm.
still kind of working. I was working on my house anyway, and my son was there. And but if I didn't go out right away in March and get that lumber for the 2x4s, 2x10s, whatever they were, in a couple months later, they were about 40 or 50% more. And we cranked it out. My son's like, "Dad, you should be a contractor." I'm like, "Brody, I come from a construction family. I mean, believe me, I understand it." And but it was fun working with my hands. I hadn't done it in a while, and uh, and we got it done. But like I said, just prices went absolutely but berserk. And I hadn't my basement wasn't finished, although my office was drywalled, and we had our house on the market, and someone put a deal on it, and then they backed out. And I told my wife, I go, "Look, we need to we need to finish the basement, and we'll get more." So we took it off. We did it ourselves. My wife's an interior designer. She's actually out on a project right now.
Mhm.
And anyway, uh, it was the best decision that I made. And we bought the land in 2020 on the house that I'm working on now. And uh, we, when I went to get, when we're going to put, I was going to put a metal roof on the house because no low maintenance, literally no maintenance if you get the right metal roof. And uh, valuing, how old I was, and this, I ended up, part metal, part shingle. We kind of did the hybrid gig, and but I went through. I interviewed. I should say interviewed. I reached out to several roofing guys locally, and we picked a guy. I like the sales guy that came out, very knowledgeable, grew up with in construction, so he knew where I was coming from, and it was funny. He checked me out too, because I told him, "Hey, I've had a magazine for 25 years. I know a lot of people." And he was like, "Oh, I went online. I found you. Oh man, you're connected." I said, "Well, I told you, but I have no ego." And but it was but his whole tone changed. Here's this thing that's just some homeowner, but I'm like, no, I own a construction man. Yeah, I'm building my house because I want to say I built that. And I told my wife, I go, look, you do bathrooms, basements,
Yeah.
kitchen. If we build, we're going to build that. So we can say we built it, and we'll have it in our portfolio, or it's my wife's company, in your portfolio of things that you want to do. And it so when the roof went up, we took videos of everything, the concrete getting laid, the framing, and all that stuff, and it was fun. But the roof was so important to me because in the old house during the summer, my third floor up in the house would get hot, and it wasn't the AC units or any of that stuff. And I told the insulation guy when he came in, even though the roof was in there, insulation is really important too, and they're kind of tied to the hip. And I said, Kirk, listen, I just want to make sure that when you do the insulation, and we were trying to decide if we were going to do foam or
Yeah.
hybrid or whatever we were going to do. Anyway, I just said, Kirk, I just want to make sure that I have I know you need a little air barrier in there, but the bottom line is that I want to make sure that the hot air during the winter, the warm air stays in, and during the summer, the cold air stays in. I want it to be buttoned up. And he's like, Dave, man, believe me, trust me. I live in my own house, and I get it. And and it was amazing when the insulation went in, and it was so quiet. I thought it was quiet when just that, but now with the drywall and everything else, it's buttoned up. But uh, it was I gave that roofer a run for his money. I think he was a young guy, probably
Yeah.
back in your day, when you were starting. And but it was really really cool. The only thing I haven't gotten the gutters done. I'm going to put the gutters on when after I get done painting outside and stuff. We're going to put the
Cool.
gutters up. So he just texted me. He's like, "Hey, we went up there to put the gutter on your. I saw you were finishing your painting." I'm like, "Yeah, give me a week, 10 days. You can go
Yeah.
out there
I'll
and put
finish
them
it.
up." Yeah.
That's
So,
that's
to
that's
talk
awesome.
about how did you end up at Rafter if you were someplace else before them? Where was the transition?
Transition was, I know some investors, they're out of New York. They're our private equity holding company, Sawmill Capital. Great guys, by the way, great investors, really believe in entrepreneur-based businesses and building them. Um, I'd met them a number of years earlier. They came to me and said, "Hey, we're building this roofing platform. We'd really like you to, I mean, you seem to have that personal touch and approach that businesses like this need." And they asked me to join. And, here I am a couple of years later in the roofing world. Love it. Um, Great people. Atlanta's kind of home base for us, actually. Our headquarters, RAFTRx headquarters, out of Duluth. So right northeast of Atlanta. We have a business there, Perimeter Roofing.
Yeah,
I mean,
Chris is the president. Chris is that his name? Is his name?
uh, uh, currently, well, it used to,
He had
Pico
someone else who
Mota.
just got promoted here locally. I got the press release. Uh, Mike, I forget. I talked to those guys, because I
Yeah, it's
post
no
stuff for them.
problem.
I post stuff. I knew who we were after was
Yeah.
when I got the publicist sent it to me.
Yeah, I'd say, we have a lot of like our roofing guys are super well known there. So if I pick any name, I think I'll offend somebody. So what I'd say is like all of them are great guys. They all have a ton of integrity. Um, and I know because I've been out on job sites with them and they get on roofs and they really care about the work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, if listen, I'm proud of anything, like this magazine. I used to do it in paper and ink and so forth. I'm a builder. I'm still a constructor. I build
Yeah,
something every month, but now I do it digitally with, technology and content. But I'm proud of everything that I do. So, and listen, word of mouth advertising is the best advertising
absolutely.
you do. So if you want to get
Yep.
repeat business or be referred, do a good job on the current project that you're done. Finish it on time, hopefully under budget and architecturally stimulating and maintenance free, and you'll have a happy customer and hopefully get some referrals from them and so forth. So, um, as a roofer, uh, what trends do you see? I know the roofing show is it coming up here, IRE? Do
It,
you?
We just had it. We just
Yeah,
had it
yeah,
a
I
couple
know.
weeks ago.
I'm normally a sponsor. This year with the house and stuff, I kind of took a hiatus, and
It's
but I'm
okay.
normally a sponsor, and I'm digital. I can't put anything out there. I can put
Yeah.
subscription for them. So they reached out and they're like, "Hey, do you want to be?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm building this house, and I'm not doing any. Right. I'm probably going to finish it right about when you guys are doing it." So, but talk about you know, uh, trends that you might see as we're going through 2025 and what might be coming down the pike.
Yeah. Well, I'd say a lot of manufacturers are investing quite a bit in the density of the shingle to make it more impact resistant and weather resistant. I think you'll see a lot of that start to trickle out here in probably late 2025 going into 2026 and 27. You'll see a lot of like repositioning of shingles and I think it's a lot more than marketing because when you talk to them about like what's changing, they're really putting a lot of thought to the granule builds and the underlayment and how those systems kind of work together to protect the roof a lot differently. So I think there's going to be a lot you start to see in terms of quality materials changing, and the science between quality materials changing. I'd say the second thing is um, solar, not panels, but shingles. And you've most people have probably heard about them because Tesla brings it up a lot, but there are a lot of other manufacturers now like GAF and Certainty have gotten a lot of steam in recent years on their solar shingles, um, which essentially takes the idea of solar and embeds it within your shingle layout on your home. So it's not so pronounced. You don't have this big thing on your house. It's kind of embedded in there. Um, what I will say to homeowners is do your research on that. The most important part is to do the math and understand what the payback really is and if it's value driven or not. It's a big investment. So you want to make sure that you get your money out of it. Um, for me, it's a no. I live up north and in the winter we get lots of snow as an example, and the snow covers your shingle. Yeah, it melts, but the efficiency of it drops, right?
Hmm.
So just do the work on it. But I think those two trends, you're going to see a higher density impact shingle in general start to come out on the asphalt side, and then a lot of push on the solar shingles more
You,
broadly.
I didn't know that Tesla was in the roofing market. I saw them at the IRE show that was in Dallas. Maybe it was last year, maybe it was the year before, I forget. Anyway, I talked to a project engineer. I told him I was going to build this house, and he said, "Look," and it wasn't shingles. They were actually, it looked like they were metal panels. It looked like
Yeah.
they had the sensors that were in there, so you didn't have to have the because my HOA wouldn't have let them put the solar panels up there.
Yes.
They already had the sensors in there. And he said, "Look, they're probably you get a 30% discount because you're putting in a green roof and your energy, and you get that tax credit." But it's probably the same amount of money per square foot that a regular metal roof is when you put it in. And I came home, but I had spoken with the local Tesla installer, and it was really a question of do we get enough sun? Am I on the right angle where the
That's
house
right.
was laid on? And I was on that buffer, and I was like, you know what? And then when we were looking at the metal and how much it was going to cost to install, and a lot of the homes, there's 52 homes in the subdivision, so most of them have shingle and metal. They'll have the canopy over the front porch, or
Right.
so it's a hybrid. It's a combo, and I was going to be the only one in there with a full metal roof, but it was definitely a little pricey, and the Tesla thing because the angle and so forth. And I was like, you know what, we'll just go this route. And
Just go about it.
yeah, I just but the
Yeah.
the bigger thing is that people don't realize that there's a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike, and if you can actually get a shingle that has the sensor in there, but like you said,
That's
if it
right.
gets snow with cover, when it gets covered with snow you're not going to be, you know what I mean? It's kind of a catch 22.
Yeah, I think doing the math and really understanding like everybody's home's a little different, and depending on where you're at in the country, it's also different, right? I also think battery technology in general is evolving. All right, so just heard something today about one of the auto manufacturers. I think is Mercedes, has a lot of conviction on solid state batteries, right? Um, as that technology evolves, the value of that will be much greater, right? So I think we're in this weird transition period where I think solar will become a part naturally of our roofs in the future. And I'm not saying no to it because I'm partners with those manufacturers. I'm just saying, make sure you do, as a homeowner, take the time to actually, like you did, David, and I respect the way you said it, and I did it as well, is like, hey, how much shade am I going to get versus how much sun? What's the weather like here? What's the payback on the electrical grid? Understand your tax savings, understand your energy savings, like really do the math on it. And if it makes sense, then by all means do it, right? Um, but if there's any hesitancy, just go to the traditional route because you can always do it later.
Yeah, we installed the Generac thing on the side and kind of went that route. And one of my buds, he was an electrical guy, and he's like, "Oh, I can get you the Generac thing for you, and this and that." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm very familiar with those guys." And so, but I was really when talked to the Tesla guy at the IRE show, I was like, "Oh God, this is." I came home and I was so psyched to show my wife and look how it looks, and no one will know that we have it. And uh, I am going to put Starlink in there, but for my internet. But the roofing, it just wasn't made to be, And when you looked
Yeah,
at the numbers, and listen, that's what you do on a budget. You look at your numbers,
that's
and
right.
and I was just like, okay, do we want to do this? It's got pros and cons, and you do the Benjamin T sheet, you figure it out, and you look and you go, okay, we're going to go this route. And but once again, it's as a homeowner, you just have to look at stuff. And don't go off on a whim. And if you don't ask questions,
That's
you'll
right.
if you don't know, ask. Then you'll know where you stand, and you can make a rational decision. And listen, I could always change the roof down the road, but I was looking more of a selling period. There was no maintenance. There's maintenance with shingles. It's just especially if you have a bad storm. And we had the hurricane that went up to North Carolina,
Yeah,
went right over Atlanta. So I just started my framing right when the Helene came through, went through Atlanta, flooded downtown, and then it blew the front of my house down. I went up at the next day to check, and they were all my pixie sticks in the front, all in the Georgia clay. And took a picture, texted to my framer, and I'm like, Emmanuel, man, check it out, man. Your whole front got blown down last night. And he's like, oh man, those are pixie sticks. We'll redo that. It'll
put
take
it
me
back up.
a day. No big deal. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad, uh, but in general, it's just do some research and you'll find out what products are there. And the biggest thing was I looked at a couple roofing guys that I knew, and then I found this guy that was locally. And I'll tell you, the sales guy that came out there, the business development, he was very knowledgeable, man. He had all his little swatches of
Yep.
and he went through, hey, this is what, a lot of people use, but this is the way you want to go, especially with the metal part. You can go the overseam, or you can have it if you use it here, it could leak. And just things that you should know. And I was like, okay, Jordan, we're gonna go this route. I like it. Let's go. And uh, and shoot, I don't even think I think it was a 20, 30-year warranty on the shingles. I don't even
That's
think
right.
I'll be in that house. I'm 62. I'll be, almost 90 years old. Do I want to be climbing up on the roof looking? Oh, my wife knows I will, but it, but still, I was like, oh,
Yes, that's right.
we'll be in a much smaller home here by then, Who shoot, my mom might be, she'll probably be calling that, but regardless, it, it was the roof is probably is a big nut. It's like concrete. It's like drywall. It's a big nut when you're building a home. So you want to make sure that
Absolutely.
you have someone that does it right, and you know that the product that you're going to do is going to be able to to weather the weather. Here it gets cold a couple months of the year, but during the summer it's brutally brutally hot. So things just get the sun can do can just beat on stuff.
Damage.
Yeah,
That's right.
just like if you're an athlete out there, man, you got to stay hydrated in the sun and in the winter. It doesn't matter what year it is, but all of that stuff. So. Um, the if someone was in the roofing side and they wanted to, if they were thinking, let's say you're in Chicago and
Yep.
you're a brand and you're thinking about branching out and so forth. If someone wanted to bounce some questions off you, how would someone reach out to you?
Um, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very public. So if you go to LinkedIn, Gyner Ozgul, just do a search for me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a message. I try to respond to all the ones that are not pitches for me to buy something.
Yeah.
So, but if you have an inquiry about starting a business or inquiry about the roofing business in general, feel free to reach out to me. I'm really good at responding. Um, as it pertains to the rafter business, we're at raftrx.com on the internet. And if you're in Atlanta, David, where David's at, Our perimeter roofing team actually has their own kind of website. It's perimeter roofing, all one word.com as well. Um, Usually we come out within a day or so. So, guys are really good at coming out and helping you out. And we're currently, the Raptor business is actually in 12 different states, primarily the Southeast, the Carolinas, in Georgia, Michigan, and Northern Ohio, and Texas. But if you need, in Tennessee, sorry, we have a great Nashville team. Um, Feel free to reach out to us, and we're willing to help. And personally, if you need some business advice or have just a quick question, feel free to reach out to me.
So listen, if you're out there and you want some, you got some roofing questions, or you're branching out, you're moving to Chicago, and you're thinking about buying an old home and you want your roof looked at, call reach out, send him an email, send him a LinkedIn, and he'll answer whatever he can for you. So if anyone wants to reach me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. It's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't look at it. Just like Gyner's publicist, I knew who Rafter was because they had sent me some stuff earlier last year, and I had posted some stuff for him. But I said, oh yeah, you know what? I'm just I'm doing this. I'm going to have this person on there. So, but listen, we look at everything. It could be an anniversary for your company. It could be a new product release. It could be a personnel announcement. It could be a charity golf tour. Whatever. We look at everything. Right now, I'm a content creator, so I'm addicted to data. So send me something. Very tough to get in the magazine, but we have a bunch of different social media platforms. We post all day long. I got two nice ladies up in Chicago, your hometown, that post for me, and they're busy all day long. So
That's awesome.
don't, send it to us. Our turnaround time is probably 48, 72 hours. Normally they got it done, within 24, but they'll send you the link. It'll be SEO. So that's your search engine optimization. That's how Google finds you. It'll be index, and we want you to share it. So it's a win-win. So send us something. Let us find a place for it. And, you know, you know, you could be one of our subscribers. And I always tell people, look, you should come to this website a couple times a month, because if you're in construction and you're on the commercial side, when I started my house, I put a residential section in the magazine too, and it's been one of the hottest sections, believe it or not, because everybody reads them at that builds. They have to live someplace, so they're thinking about it too. So, but in any event, that's how you reach it. Reach us both. And I'm on LinkedIn too. You'll find me. You can find me I'll pop up. So, um, if if there was one positive thought and or phrase that you'd like to leave with our listeners as we finish up our episode, what would that be?
I use this quote personally that I came up with a number of years ago. Grit is the resolve to be better for those around you. Um, for me, grit is all about how we all get up in the morning and have to kind of get through the life every day, right? But don't ignore the fact that we all work with people, and a lot of those people, um, they are not as like blessed as I am. So I have to make sure that I always work towards the outcome of making the people around me better. So if I had, that would be my quote. Always be considerate of those around you and help work with those folks, so we can make them better as well.
Hey, I like grit. I deal with grit all day long. Last year I ran 5 to 7 miles a day. I was doing positive thoughts, and I do a little video, and I did it all year. Have 364 of them. This year
That's
I'm doing
awesome.
word of the day. I don't know if I've done grit. I'll have to look back at my list. And but I like grit. Whenever I think of grit, I think of John Wayne. Getting bucked
That's right.
off a horse, dusting yourself off, getting back in the saddle.
That's right.
Done, right? That's the way I look at grit. So what a nice positive thought, positive thought. So listen, grit, it's a good thing. Personal, business, athletics, it
That's
all.
all right.
Because let me tell you, if you don't have grit, you got to have grit, man, because it's a crazy world out there. So, uh, a couple things as we finish up. Number one, if you're on the construction site, we want you to be safe. We want you to be able to get home, have dinner with your family, friends, pets, whatever. Have some fun that night, get some REM sleep, 6 to 8 hours, and get ready to do it again the next day. Number two, I don't know my water bottle. I think I left it downstairs. But if you're on the site, drink lots. You gotta stay hydrated. That's the athlete in me. When you get dehydrated, you get a headache. You throw lousy passes, you miss the net. Bottom line is if you stay hydrated on the construction site and you put some electrolytes in your bottle, number one, you're going to have a much better day. Number two, you're going to sleep better and you'll be able to get up and do it again the following day. So hydration, and it doesn't matter if it's winter or summer. You can get dehydrated in both. You got to stay liquefied. And last but not least, listen, hit the like button on there. So people can find us on the web with the algorithms and get this episode out so they can hear Gyner's story. So, Gyner, any last words as we finish up?
No, David, I really appreciate you having me on the show. I think I'm humbled. I think you're recognizing the viewership around who they are and what they do every day. I say personally, thank you to all of them for that work, and authentically appreciate all of that. And maybe like last parting word, just have grit. Get up every day. If you have
Yeah,
the grit,
right.
you at the end of the day, we'll all be successful.
Hey, it's just the American way. You gotta dust yourself off. You gotta pull yourself bootstraps up, and you just gotta deal it one day at a time. Don't look in the
One
future,
day at a time.
okay? Because you don't know what the future is gonna bring, and don't look back because the scoreboard you can't change. It's got a W or it's got a lesson on there.
That's
I don't
right.
even use lose. It's either you win or you learn. So don't look back. If you forget the score, you can look back, okay, and then you can remind yourself what the score was. But the bottom line is, look forward and surround yourself with positive people, and your days will and stay liquefied. Trust me, that water thing, man, it
Mhm.
works. So, uh, with that, listen, pleasure. If I come up to Chicago, I want to see some projects. You take me out?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. Let me
Yeah,
know when
I
you're
know.
around.
Listen, I know the AHR show was up in Chicago. It's up there in at McCormick, and it's in the middle of January. I don't know. They rotate it around, but when I do Chi-Town, I do it. If I can go there, I do it in the summer, or in the fall, when it's nice. I don't want to, listen, cold weather. I lived up north. I went to school in Denver. I had plenty of snow and stuff. Yeah, I miss skiing, but I can deal with, when it snows. Hopefully, I don't get in my car because it's bumper cars down here. No one knows that, and it's ice
Mhm.
too. So and I don't care how good it is. So you're
That's
driving,
right.
it's black ice. It is what it is. So, uh, well, pleasure meeting you. I look forward to
Thank
seeing you
you.
up in Chicago. Say goodbye from Chi-Town.
Goodbye from Chi-Town.
Yeah, and I'm going to say goodbye from Sugar Hill, which is about 25, 30 miles north of downtown Atlanta, up on Lake Lanier. And listen, everybody, it's first week of March. Strong with momentum all the way through the end of the month, and we'll finish off the first quarter of 2025 and keep that going off to the rest of the year. It's the most amazing time to be alive. History's being made every day. There's so much going on, and it's going to be amazing what comes down through the pike, down the road. Not only construction, but just everything, that's going on in the world today. So enjoy it, and just stay positive and keep your blinders and keep moving forward. Don't look back. That's all on the scoreboard. So, with that said, have a great and constructive week ahead, and we will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Thoroughly enjoyed the conversation.
Thank
Glad
you.
you're here. All right.
Thank you.
See ya.